Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 30 of the JuvoHub show, both in podcast and in YouTube format. We are so grateful to have all of you with us again today. We appreciate your support of the show with your reviews, your comments, your feedback, your likes. So thank you, thank you, thank you. We have another amazing guest with us, Kara Rice from Swift Bunny. Kara, how are you today?
I am very well. Delighted to be here for episode 30. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's a good round number and an amazing topic to chat about when it comes to employee engagement and the turnover trends. So we can't wait to hear what some stats and what you're seeing as trends, and then more importantly, what can people do about it? What can property management companies do about these challenges? But before we dive into our topics, Mark Howell, Howell Creative Concepts, Mark the man, what's happening? How are you?
Oh man, thank you. I'm here. I'm excited, man. I tell you what, anything Kara has to say, I'm listening. So Kara, I have to tell you, I love this topic. I love you. I'm so fascinated to dive into this and pick your brain and see what kind of advice you can give to our listeners out there, because it's a serious one. You know, it's one that honestly, it is a conversation that I remember having even 20 something years ago. And this conversation, it's strange. It's like it never goes away. But what's sad is you would hope that it would get maybe better, but I'm going to let you tell us what's better, what's good, what's bad, what's ugly, so I'm excited.
Good. It's really great to be here with you. And you are so right. So much has changed in multifamily, but this is one of those things that really hasn't. So it makes me think of that expression, the more things change, the more they stay the same. So keeping our teams motivated, satisfied, so they can deliver for organizations, it remains a big challenge in multifamily.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So just to kind of get us going then, Kara, we know Swift Bunny is, it's what you guys do. You compile data, statistics, trends. So do you have some stats, some trends that you see that you can share with the audience on what's the scope of that? What are the challenges with employee engagement, and what does turnover look like these days?
Right. So let's start with a stat not from Swift Bunny, but from the NAA, which is multifamily turnover, employee turnover. And the NAA reports this every year in their income and expense report. And I actually think the source for their data on turnover comes from CEL and Associates. But the reported annual turnover for multifamily is at about 32.7%. And here's the interesting thing is that's been hovering in that area for the last 10 years or so. It just is steady, and we don't seem to be making any progress there. Compare that with industries at large throughout the US, and businesses in general have an employee turnover ratio or rate of 19%. So multifamily is significantly higher than that, at 32, 33%. Here's the thing, though, that I think it may even be scarier than that, because anecdotally, when I talk to multifamily operators, everyone tells me that they think that 32, 33% figure is kind of low. So let me ask you guys, what do you think? Does that feel like the right number to you?
Well, I'll tell you, some of the companies that I worked for previously or have dealt with have told me that their numbers are much higher than that. So to answer your question, I was kind of glad to hear the 33%, because some of the last ones, it was 60%. And that seemed shocking to me. When I think of you have a 60% turnover rate, like maybe we're not doing something right here. Yes. So I look at your 30% and I say, okay, I'm willing to take that over the 60 that I was more familiar with, but gosh, now I don't know.
Right. So I hate to kind of question that data. I don't mean to be just throwing rocks at the data, but that's the data we have to work with, but it doesn't match up what I hear anecdotally, just like you said, Mark. So one thing that I wonder is, I know there's a great difference in turnover depending on the role. So on-site entry-level maintenance, for example, that's going to turn over at a much higher rate than the C-suite. So perhaps what we really need and we don't have in the industry is turnover broken down in that way, so we can really dissect where it's happening. So that data does break it down to a certain extent. We know that the highest turnover is on maintenance, maintenance technicians, entry-level maintenance in particular. And then right behind that is leasing. So the entry-level positions are where we really struggle. Managers and assistant managers, not quite as high, and corporate level folks are much more comfortable, and they stick around a lot longer. So, but that kind of makes sense to me, because that home office experience is very different than the on-site experience. Would you agree?
Absolutely. Oh my goodness, yes. And I can't wait for you to tell me a little bit. I was actually on y'all's site last night looking at some of the data that you guys produce, and just speaking about leasing consultants in general. Will you tell me a little bit about, I had my notes and I could go through them, but maybe it'd be better coming from you. It was like the top reasons why leasing consultants, from your surveys there at Swift Bunny, what they find that sort of disenchants them, and then what they're really looking for. And I love it. I love that you guys are surveying the employees and you're digging into really finding out what is that trigger point that you're leaving us. Is it the dollar down the street, or is it something internal, the way we're treating them? But will you tell me a little bit about that data, because I loved it.
Yeah, good. Thank you. So that's exactly what we do. We work with owners and management companies, and we help them survey their associates. And we do this not just annually, but we do it constantly. So they receive surveys throughout the year at important points during the employee life cycle. And because it makes sense, the way people feel about their work and their job, that changes from day to day and month to month. And asking somebody how satisfied they are once a year really doesn't cut it. So we try to get a better picture of how folks are doing by querying them throughout the year. And when we do that, the whole goal here is to understand what's satisfying to them and what is dissatisfying to them, so that the employer and leaders within the organization have an opportunity to make the workplace as satisfying an experience as it can be for those associates. And when you meet the needs of the associates, then they can deliver for you. So some of the things that we are seeing with leasing in particular, to your question, Mark, one of the dissatisfiers or the opportunities for improvement here is leasing folks tell us that they are really fuzzy about the opportunities for growth and development within their organizations. Is that surprising to you to hear that?
No, I remembered seeing that. You're right. And no, that is not surprising at all.
Yeah, they want to know what the promotion path is. And that doesn't necessarily mean they think they're going to be promoted tomorrow or that they deserve that promotion tomorrow. They just want to know what it's going to take to get there. And so that is something that I think leaders could really easily address by opening up the lines of communication with their teams. But if they don't know it's a problem, then they don't know they have to fix it. So that's where the importance of surveying the team members comes in, so they can understand what it is that associates are struggling with. And speaking of communication, that is a challenge in every role, whether it's leasing, maintenance, managers, and that's probably not surprising to you guys either, that's a challenge, because it's something I think we've always struggled with in multifamily. Part of that, I think, is because our teams are geographically dispersed. So, for example, the regional isn't face-to-face with those she or he supervises on the daily. And, teams are just spread out, and that makes communication more challenging. But there's a constant sense of the right hand doesn't know what the left is doing, or nobody told me that, or, management is in on all these meetings, but maintenance doesn't know anything. So there's the kind of that silo effect going on. So unclear communication is a constant complaint. And another one that's kind of interesting, and we see this especially with leasing, but also maintenance, is they feel like when they need support, when they have questions that they need answers to, they are not getting responses from supervisors or coworkers within the organization. So we ask them, do you get the responses you need within a reasonable time frame? And the answer is no. I reach out for help and I get nothing. I get crickets. And that makes people look bad, right? So think about a maintenance supervisor who needs approval for an expense, right, in order to make a repair in a resident's apartment, and they get nothing. They don't get a response from the supervisor. So now that maintenance supervisor looks like they're unresponsive to the customer, right? So it's frustrating all the way around.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
Yeah, I know, Jonathan, you want to say something. Don't let me forget, Kara. I want to say something to you about that last comment.
Okay.
My brain is working.
I kind of have a cost question. So go ahead, ask your question, Mark.
Okay, sorry. I remembered, Kara, back in my day out on site, in training, I wanted to survey the employees to get a better understanding about how they felt, right? And I remembered it was said to me, oh my gosh, no, don't do that. You'll just open up Pandora's box, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so what I love, Jonathan and I have been talking about this today, is that things change, right? Our industry changes. We embrace now, and through Swift Bunny, you guys are asking some pretty difficult questions of these employees. Like, y'all want to know, you're ripping off a very gnarly Band-Aid, right? Like,
right.
There is no telling what you find under that, because the things that you're looking for are very telling to the company's organization as far as the foundation of it. But I love that, because for me, true transparency and honesty is what makes a company strong. And if you don't ask those types of questions of your employees, you will never know why they continue to leave you. So I love the things that you were just saying, like the types of questions that you're asking these employees are kind of unheard of in our industry, back in the day. And so what I'm loving that I'm hearing is that somebody is finally ripping the Band-Aid off and saying, let's look at how nasty this thing is, and, and figure out how to clean it up. Right. So thank you for doing that.
Well, you're absolutely right. It requires a little bit of bravery. And for a long time, we've kind of taken that ostrich approach of burying the head in the sand. I don't want to know if there's bad stuff out there. Don't tell me, because then I don't have to fix it. But obviously, that's not a great approach. But think back, you guys, to maybe, 15, 20 years ago, when we first started surveying residents. Do you remember when that was revolutionary? And that was really spooky as well. It really was. And that was a whole learning curve, I think, for the industry. I remember the response kind of being, why would we want to do that? Exactly. It was kind of terrifying to us. But that's just second nature. Everybody does that now. And it drives so much of how we manage our operations, that feedback on the resident side. So really what we're doing here in Swift Bunny is, and with the companies that are partnered with us, it's taking that same skill set and just shifting the focus, targeting instead the employee customer, so that we can uncover what's happening there. And we don't only find out the bad stuff, we find out the strengths as well. So the organizations can identify what they're doing well, so they can do more of it, and really make a big impact on their employees.
Absolutely.
That is fantastic. I love what you guys are doing to kind of resonate with some of Mark's comments, because I do remember those days, Carol, when it was, why would you want to ask that question of a resident? Are you out of your mind? They're going to tell you what they want. We don't want to know what they want. We just want them to pay rent.
We just want them to pay rent. Yes.
And so here we are with the product that you've been referencing, and being able to know. I'd love your thoughts on, because we've heard this a lot at sessions for years, the cost of retaining an employee versus the cost of training and onboarding a new employee. So what's your thoughts on that when it comes to now? Is there still that big difference? Is that what employers, besides the cultural fact, yes, you should be wanting to make your employees happy, but is that also part of the equation of why they need to be looking at their employee turnover and how it affects their bottom line?
Yeah, that's a great question. And there's just no doubt that retaining employees saves an organization money. It is extremely expensive to have very high employee turnover. So really, even the naysayers, even folks who think, I don't care about employee engagement, I don't care if my team members are happy, they're happy enough to cash their paycheck, aren't they? That's all I need. And there are definitely some leaders out there who feel that way, right? So the reason that you should care about employee engagement is not just because it's the right thing to do, but because it's what's good for your bottom line. So the cost of employee turnover is tremendous, and it is estimated to be anywhere from 50% of a person's annual salary all the way up to 200% of their annual salary. And that's going to differ depending on the individual and the role that they are in, and the costs associated with replacing them. So for example, if you're using an outside recruiter, you're going to have to pay a little more for that. But what it factors in is all of the costs of separation, anything you might have to pay out to somebody, unused vacation time, et cetera, on their way out the door. Costs such as when you're running short staffed and it's taking longer and longer right now to fill those vacant positions. It is really hard to hire right now. Right. So if you lose somebody, say a maintenance tech, you could be 90 days or more with a vacant position. And during that time, you're going to have to likely contract out for some of the work that they do. So it's very, very expensive, and those costs really add up. So there's just no question that it is in an organization's best financial interest. It's good for their bottom line to keep the employee turnover as low as they can.
Yeah. So this is probably a good opportunity then to kind of pivot the conversation just a bit towards, so for our listeners, this is happening. It's real. Mm-hmm. You can't be like, well, I wonder if I have employee turnover. Well, maybe I do. You can't, have that type of position where you need to know. That's it. What is it? But now that that's being recognized, any thoughts, tips, comments on what operators can do to minimize? Is there things within those surveys and that data that you're seeing that are even if they're just little things that could be done today that would help them reduce employee turnover?
Mm-hmm. Sure. So the first thing is, as we've kind of touched on today, you don't know what you don't know. So it's so important to start that conversation with your team members and find out what it is that makes them happy, and where they think the organization could improve. And Jonathan, I know you and I have talked about this on a previous conversation. You just can't manage what you don't measure. Right. So you have to know what you are up against, which is why we're so encouraged when companies are willing to go there and conduct those surveys and take an assessment of how team members are feeling. Some of the things, let me think, I can give you some examples of clients that we have worked with, some wins that they've been able to employ by looking at the information on some of their employee satisfaction surveys. Mm-hmm. So, for example, we worked with the company Apartment Dynamics. Many of you probably know Mary Gwynn.
Yep.
And she is just an amazing leader and a wonderful partner with us. So we've been working with them for some time. And they had a really interesting experience last year during the height of the pandemic. So, like most organizations, they were forced to kind of shut down and couldn't have face-to-face meetings with leaders. They just weren't able to visit the sites and gather people together as often. So what they did was they established a rhythm of weekly Zoom conference calls with the team. So leaders presenting, but every member of the team is on camera. And this was their way of keeping people connected when they couldn't physically get out to the sites and visit with them.
Mm-hmm.
So they had these weekly town hall meetings. And do you know that their employee engagement actually rose during the pandemic? So life is as hard as it's ever been. You might expect for associates to actually be feeling worse than ever. They were actually feeling better than ever. And that was one of the things they attributed to, is this improved communication with leadership. The leadership was extremely visible and the employees absolutely loved it. So much so that as operations normalized, Mary and the other leaders thought, well, we can probably dial back. We probably don't need to be having these town hall meetings with quite as much frequency, or maybe we don't need everybody involved. But before they made a change, they polled their team about it and said, this is what we're thinking. We probably don't need the frequency of these meetings, so we're going to cut this back, right? Is that what everybody wants? And the team said, no. Wow. Absolutely. Don't change a thing. We love the all hands on deck meetings once a week. We feel so very informed and we feel very connected to the leadership. So please keep it up. So they are. So it's just a really interesting outcome, I think, from a very difficult time. But it was just kind of a positive impact of a change they made during the pandemics. Interesting stuff.
That's great. That's fascinating. I'm excited to hear that people actually wanted to keep participating in more team discussions. So wonderful. I have a sort of reverse question to Jonathan's question to you. What would you say, and maybe, I don't know if it's one particular role, but in your surveying of the employees, what would you say is one of the most staggering things that stands out as far as what they dislike? Is it like you said with leasing, it was that promotability, where can I go next? But just as a whole, is there something that sort of seems to have the pulse as far as why our employees are becoming disenchanted? Is it communication from the top? Is it just maybe like you say, not being able to get promoted? Is it money? Because I have this conversation with a lot of my friends in the industry, and we really beat our heads up against the wall, and we're asking each other, like, why is it that our teams will go down the street for 50 cents or $1? Is it really about the money, or is it about something deeper that's not being addressed? I don't know.
So yes, and yes, all of the above. Yeah. There's just no denying that compensation is a significant factor in satisfaction. I think, however, that it's also one of those things like, how a resident will always tell you that they're buying a house, when they're leaving. It's because that's kind of the easy thing to say. It may not be the real truth, or it may not be the whole truth. Right. Maybe they never would have shopped for that house if they were more satisfied where they were living, right? So compensation is always a factor. One of the things that we have discovered working with our clients is that sometimes there's a dissatisfaction less with the salary or the hourly wage, but with the overall package. So benefits, for example, that is an area, and we've seen that in particular with maintenance, that they may not be a perfect match for the individual's needs. So we encourage management companies to take a close look at their total compensation package and ensure that it is meeting needs. So, for example, a client that we worked with had what they thought was a stellar medical health insurance offering. Well, it turns out that it was extremely expensive to the individual participants, which was something that those in the leadership decision-making seats were less aware of, because of course those folks make more money, than the entry-level employee. So they didn't realize as a percentage of salary just how significant that was. Another thing to look at in terms of total compensation there is I think that we overall can do a better job with explaining to employees the value of all of the benefits that the employer offers. So I think that our team members are fixated on the hourly wage that they are making or the salary. But we encourage companies to do a total compensation statement so that individuals can see that they're making, yes, this much in cash, for example, but the value is this much when you factor in, paid time off and insurance, et cetera. So they can really kind of sell that total package even more so to their teams.
That's great advice. I couldn't agree with you more. I think if companies did that more upfront and actually told the employee like this, they hear that $1 amount and they're willing to make a decision on taking that job or not, but you're not factoring in how much value is in that package alone. So yeah, I agree. I think if we all understood that more, and my mom used to tell me when I was younger and I would be like, I don't know if I really want to take this job. And I would explain everything to her and she would say, well, now hold on, you have to remember, that the insurance alone. And so she helped me at a young age understand the value behind it. But you're right. I don't think a lot of people really think about that.
Yeah, especially those who are new to working, they just don't fully appreciate that, I think. So it's something that we as employers can do a better job of, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, this has been an amazing, stellar deep dive, Kara, eye-opening. I think, Mark, it just
yes,
some data that everyone listening to this show needs to take action on. We need to get our industry. I mean, we would love to have 0% turnover, but that's not realistic. But to think of where we can improve as an industry, what leaders can do, what corporate can do. It's to your point, Kara. Yeah, it starts with the data. There's no cookie cutter approach. It doesn't sound like that. You just need to know what is going on in your house, figure it out. And your product is amazing. We've heard a lot of feedback from people who use you, and, kudos to you and your team for bringing that out and bringing, like Mark said, let's rip that Band-Aid off. Let's get the conversation going, get our industry back, moving towards that direction where, because even locally, Mark and I are involved with the schools, Georgia Tech and University in Georgia, and there's other schools that are doing property management tracks. And so this is what these ones that are coming out of school, they're looking at, what you just described as a compensation package. Where is the transparency? Where is the clear path of where I'm going to go if I choose to be with this company? Does it look better here, or does it look better here? So even from a talent, bringing in talent to your organization, you're going to continue to struggle if you can't get what's going on in your house cleaned up, so that's there's just such a big picture. So thank you so much for really helping our audience understand what they need to do and some actionable items to start with today. Thank you for being on the show.
Absolutely. Yeah.
My pleasure. This was a very interesting conversation, and I could talk about it forever.
I know. Look, I have 1,000 more things I want to say.
Oh, good.
And I know Jonathan's like, come on, Mark, we got to wrap it up. But I have to say, like, kudos to you guys. Jonathan is absolutely right. What I do know about just my own research on generations, the younger generations definitely want to be heard, and that we know about education and their promotability, their you know, where they're going to go. But when they enter the workforce, they already have an opinion. They have a voice, and though they might be young and this may be their first job, let me tell you, they will come in and already have ideas of how to make things better. And so if you're not having those raw, honest conversations, you'll lose them. You'll lose that great talent immediately. And then the last thing I have to say, and I'll let you go, is this. Tammy Shivers Baker, my sweet friend over there, shared with me some swag that you guys have, and they were these adorable bunny slippers. And my last question for you is this: do you have those in a men's size 10.5? Because I really think they would look cute on me.
I think we can make that happen, Mark. I think we can.
Man,
I'll check the swag closet.
Oh my gosh, please do.
Jonathan, you too.
Okay. Yeah, I'm a size 10. So
bunny slippers. You know, once we all can leave our house again, I expect to see them on your feet at the next conference or trade show.
I will. I'll tell you, I will put them on.
We'll lead a parade. Awesome. There'll be a parade down the trade show floor now. Everybody with their slippers on.
Yeah. They're trending.
That's right. Yeah, no, this has been great. Kara, we always ask this of our guests. You know, you have been an amazing educator for our industry for a long time. You know, that's how I met you. I'm sure, Mark, maybe that's how you met Kara too. Just that's been your passion. It's been your life in one form or another. What would you say? Like, what's your go-to? You have like a mantra, an expression, a saying, quote, anything that you've used with students or you use for yourself that you'd like to share with the audience?
Yeah, thank you for asking me that. By the way, I wanted to point out to you, it's kind of a funny coincidence that this is your 30th episode, because this that must be the number of the year for me, because this is my 30th year in property management, which is staggering to me. I don't know how we got here so quickly, but yeah, this is my 30th year in property management. So for me, I always like to point out that, you know, the name of our industry is a little bit of a misnomer, property management, because it's really not about the property at all. It's about the people. Mm-hmm. It's about our customers, our resident customers, and our prospect customers. But of course, for me, I like to focus on the employees who make it all happen. So the headaches associated with property management, yeah, we have some property stuff. We have, gates that don't function properly and, building fires, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, that's real. But the people issues, I think, are really what challenge us the most. And they are also what is the most rewarding about this business. It's what I love, is helping people be good at their job. And that's when they really enjoy their work and their job, is when they are good at it. So for me, it's all about the people. And I like to help others to keep that focus there and not to be distracted by some of this, the many other distractions that come our way in property management. And remember that if we can keep our employees fully satisfied, they will perform well and deliver for our residents. And that's how we keep our residents satisfied as well. So it's all about the people.
Yeah. Love it. I love it. Yeah. Full circle, all comes right back around, doesn't it? That's awesome. Thank you, Kara. So again, just remind our audience, what do you do at Swift Bunny? How can people connect with you and learn more about what Swift Bunny does and talk to you about the services?
Yeah, by all means, you can find us, visit our website at swiftbunny.com. You can find me at Kara, Kara, at swiftbunny.com. And you can find me on all the social channels as well, Kara Rice at LinkedIn or Facebook or Twitter, et cetera, et cetera. I'm easy to find. So yeah, I'd be delighted to speak with you at any time if you're interested in learning more about our flagship product, which is called Engage by Swift Bunny, and that is our employee lifecycle feedback system. So it is not just surveys, but also a really robust dashboard where you can monitor employee satisfaction year round. And in addition to that, we've got a whole system for helping you to improve employee satisfaction so that your employees can be top performers for you. And ultimately, we'd like to help you minimize and reduce that employee turnover as well. So thank you for the opportunity for the pitch. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. Thank you for sharing that with me. Yeah, please, everyone listening, check it out. We need to make that change. Reduce.
I wanted to say, you guys on your site, Kara, if I'm right, when I looked at it, do you guys offer free little webinars too, where people can join in? There were a lot of different topics that I felt like they might have been free. Please correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, they are.
If you
they
go
are.
to swiftbunny.com, you can see, I forget what tab it's under, but there were several of them. And I was kind of fascinated by that. I was like, yes, I'm going to sign up for a few of those right now. So that's right? What tab is that under?
Yep. It is in our resources area. So once a month, we have a free webinar that's usually conducted by my colleague, Jen Picotti, and myself. And so we hit on various topics. This month, we're going to be hitting on onboarding, employee onboarding. So we just try to hit on anything that can help you improve that engagement level with your team members. And they're totally free, and all of our past webinars are archived there. So yeah, come on and visit us, and you can check those all out. Thank you, Mark.
Yeah, love that.
Yeah, very good. Thanks for mentioning that, Mark. Excellent resource. So thank you, Kara. Mark, my man, how can people connect with you?
Absolutely. So howellcreativeconcepts.com. The Howell is spelled H-O-W-L, like Howl at the Moon, or Mark at howellcreativeconcepts.com. Look, I'm more about pushing people, Kara, to Swift Bunny. It's so funny. I had to stop and just mention that again, because I think y'all's resources are incredible. But like you, I'm on LinkedIn, Facebook. I smile when people tell me all of the channels they're on. It's like Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram, all these places. But yeah, the normal things that you can find me on as well. But yeah, please let us know how we can help you guys out. So thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, Kara.
Yeah, definitely check
Love talking to you guys. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks everyone. This has been episode 30 and Kara's 30th anniversary in the industry. So yes, awesome coincidence. We thank everyone for supporting the show. My name is Jonathan Sarr, and we will see you next time. Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.